Thank you so much, Ambassador Chamberlain, for that very warm introduction. It's really an honor to be here tonight and to have the privilege of giving this prestigious award to my friend Naguib Sawiris, a fellow Egyptian. We want to call you a fellow Egyptian American, but not quite yet. You know, I have to start out by saying that one of the greatest privileges that I had was serving alongside the extraordinary men and women of the Foreign Service. And my time was short. You've dedicated your lives to it. And watching Ambassador Crocker up there tonight was really humbling for me. It is unbelievable how much you sacrifice to serve our country. And I sit here tonight with Ambassador Chamberlain, Ambassador Crocker, Ambassador Jones, and so many others. And would you just please give them a hand of applause for their service? I was struck as I was sitting there, though, that we have so many friends who also serve those roles. Here we are tonight with the distinguished ambassadors and their excellencies from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and the new ambassador, newish, from the Arab League. And, you know, there is a camaraderie there because these are men and women who truly love their countries. And I think you all also, and if I've left any out, I apologize, but I'd like to give you all a hand of applause as well. You know, I had the privilege of meeting Naguib Sawiris when a friend of ours, Ambassador David Welch, the then ambassador to Cairo from the United States, introduced us. And that was many, many years ago, actually, almost 12 years ago. And over the time that I served in the White House, in the State Department, and now at Goldman Sachs, Naguib and his wife, Ghada, and their extraordinary family have been very dear friends. I will tell you a little bit of a funny story, though, that is a connection across the oceans, as they say. This morning when I told my daughters why I wasn't going to be home tonight, I told them that I was presenting this award to one of the most famous businessmen in all the world, an Egyptian, and that a little tidbit they might find interesting is that his father, Unsi, is named Unsi, and their grandfather, my father, is named Unsi. And so my 6-year-old Ava looked at me and she said, "Wait a minute, Mom. His dad's name is Unsi. Your dad's name is Unsi. I mean, how many Unsis are there in Egypt?" And I said to her, "Well, actually, Ava, Unsi is like John in Egypt, so there are a lot of them." And I used to always have to explain that Habib, which sounded different to them, was like Smith in Egypt. So she looked at me totally straight and said, "So we can start calling Giddo John Smith." I told her I did not think her grandfather would be for that. Naguib Sawiris, in this room especially, really doesn't need an introduction, but I think it is important to pause and to comment on his extraordinary success in business. As the executive chairman of the Orascom Group, he is the largest private sector employment in Egypt. That is truly extraordinary and has been for many years. He is also the vice chair of the Sawiris Foundation for Social Development, which empowers Egyptian citizens by encouraging job creation through training, education, and access to microcredit. In the wake of the Egyptian Revolution last year, Naguib founded the Free Egyptians Party, which promotes democratic values and pluralism in Egypt. Naguib serves on countless boards, too many to name, but the thing that is not as widely known, because he is so humble about it, is the extent to which he has given philanthropically. He has invested in so many causes, not just in Egypt, but all around the world, to help serve those who are so much less advantaged to so many. I was thinking today about all that Naguib has done and is doing, and how proud we are that his mom, Yusriya, is involved in a program we have in Egypt called 10,000 Women, which at Goldman Sachs we're very proud of, an initiative that our CEO, Lloyd Blankfein, launched, and with the help of colleagues like Sharif Wahba, my friend who's here tonight, we have already trained more than 300 Egyptian female entrepreneurs. They all want Orascom to invest, by the way. I'll be back to you on that. But I actually was thinking about a personal story that made me think about the values that Naguib has embodied all of his life. And that is, believe it or not, 35 years ago, I was in Tahrir Square. But I was there holding my mother's hand as a young girl, very proud of her mom in her cap and gown because she had just graduated from the American University in Cairo. And I remember so clearly being a little kid who actually was just tired and wanted to go eat, but the pride on her face because there she thought, as a woman, an Egyptian woman, that she was beginning the steps to ensure that her 3 daughters would later reach their full potential. And to imagine that so many decades later, many Egyptians are still fighting for the chance for that one simple dream so that their children can reach their full potential. And I don't think there is anybody I know that loves his country as much and is willing to invest in that ideal, crazy as it may seem, and crazy as he's been called sometimes, out of love of that country. But I think that is a hope that we should all continue to strive for. So with that, please welcome Naguib Sawiris.
I'm going to have the shortest of all the 3, so don't worry, we'll all leave. I mean, I think I was 16, 17 years old when I decided, when I started thinking, I mean, the same thoughts everybody has: why are we here? What's the meaning of life? Why did God create us? And all that. And I found out that I'm not going anywhere with these thoughts, so I better see what I want to do in this life. So I decided that I want to do a lot of good, but I figured out I was in a German school, so the Germans are very much pushing, you know. So I said the only way to do that is to become very powerful, you know. Okay. Now, being a Christian Copt in Egypt doesn't make you really very optimistic about your political career. So I wasn't going to make a big political career being a Copt, you know. So I decided, okay, then what's the other alternative? Is to become very rich. So I could do a lot of good, you know. But the problem is I was a Sunday school teacher. I was going to church every Sunday, and I remember that Jesus said it's very difficult for a rich guy to go through to heaven. It's like a camel through a needle. So I said, okay, what would I do then? How should I deal with that? You know, I'm a strong believer, and I believe in my book, you know. And I said, okay, let's first get rich and then worry about how to get to heaven. To make the speech shorter, I'll jump to the fact that I actually became very rich in the end. And during that time, I decided what good I should do. And I think I'm a person, even in micro size, I try to do good every day, you know, like helping an old lady with a bag or anything. It's my nature, you know. But just to jump to the end of where we are today, you know, I take pride on the fact that even during the Mubarak regime, I was critical. I was very clear about not trying to come too near, because I didn't feel that this is a regime that will sustain forever, because it was dictatorial, you know. And I take pride in the fact that actually I created the first newspaper with another friend of mine that was actually the voice of democracy and freedom and pluralism and secularism. And it's still today one of the largest newspapers in Egypt, Al Masri Al-Yawm. I followed that with another TV station, which was actually the TV station of the revolution on TV. And to jump again to the end, you know, I remember an incident during the, we were put under a lot of pressure during the old regime because of these two stations, and I might say that I'm still under a lot of pressure today because of the same thing, although we made a revolution. I remember that the Minister of Information called me the third day of the revolution, called the manager first and told him, listen, you need to air the public or the national stations because you are really doing the wrong job, because we were just filming what was happening. You know, stations don't make up the news. The news are there, you know. And he told him, look, this is not my decision. You need to talk to Mr. Sawiris, you know, but I wouldn't advise you to do that. But he did, you know, and I ended the conversation, but I'm not going to do that. And that I told him, you know, you would do your country much more better if you would show the truth, because maybe we can get to the bottom of that. The second time, I remembered my very high conscience and the dream I had to do good, is when I was interviewed in during the revolution, where the regime was still in place. Mr. Mubarak was still president, the Minister of Interior, everything was still in place. And this, as usual, cunning TV presenter of the Arabiya surprised me in the end with a question which usually I answer immediately. I don't take time to answer. But that is the first time in my life where I had to take a breath and think very carefully, because he told me, okay, now we understand your analysis, what you're trying to do. We were trying at that time through the Committee of Wise Men to have a succession of Mr. Mubarak to a more like a succession into a democratic regime without the army taking over. We failed, as you know. So he told me then, so tell me one question only. Are you with the guys in the square, or do you want them to leave, or should they stay there and fuel the revolution? Now I remembered that this is the moment of truth, So, but I took my breath and then I told him, no, they should stay there because we want a new life, And I did that, with all the courage. Of course, when I finished, I went down. The first phone call came from my brother, who doesn't share my enthusiasm or my revolutionary ideas. Was a very careful businessman, and he thinks I should have stayed only a businessman. And he told me, can you explain to me exactly what went into your mind when you made that statement? So I told him, look, it was the right thing to do. Well, he was nice enough to tell me, well, maybe we're lucky and you're right, and these guys are not behaving the right way, so maybe you were right, And again, after I closed with him, then my dad called. Is it true that you went to Arabiya and said this? And I said, yes, Dad. And he told me, okay, what went into my head? Nothing. It just was the right thing to do. So doing the right thing is like my colleagues here, which I'm very honored to be with today, and Mrs. Ashrawi and Mr. Jameel, is something I think that is very important in life, because if you look at the politicians and policies and diplomats that are here, sometimes they just do what is diplomatically right. But I'm not someone who is diplomatic, and I don't think that it's always, it serves the rightnesses of being diplomatic. You need to go out there and do really the right thing that your conscience tells you. On that note, I thank you very much.
Well, I think all of our dear friends here this evening would agree with me that we've had six very inspiring talks, 8 with Steve Ensky and Ryan Crocker. It's been an extraordinary evening. One of the things we like to do in the Middle East Institute is end it early, but we have been graced by the attendance of all of you and by our honorees and our speakers this evening, and we look very much forward to next year when you're going to come and join us again. Thank you so much.